Hi guys, Thogrey here for a new video, and this video will be a PvP tier list video for ranged DPS, patch 9.2.5 season 3 of Shadowlands. We are pretty much in the mid-season. They will come out probably with a season 4 around midsummer, maybe late summer, and then you will see Warlock at the end of the year, like around November probably. And I'm actually excited for Warlock. I'm actually excited for Dragonflight, probably January, February, something like that. And yeah, I'm actually excited for what's coming up for World of Warcraft. But let's discuss about this tier list. I've made a melee tier list. If you want to check that out, you can always check that out. At the end of the video, you will have a pop-up of that tier list. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you like those kinds of content, like the video if you like the video, and you will see timestamps below with parts where you can skip ahead if you are more interested on one spec or another, or you want to jump off and jump in the video whenever you want. You can check that out. We will start with a meta-analysis on Xunamate. I feel like Xunamate is at this very moment more precise on the amount of specs that are played. You cannot really precise if it's above 1800 or if it's overall match played, but that's not a problem. So we will jump right in Xunamate and we will discuss about the ranged specialization. So we are at 2v2 now. We are going to discuss about TV2, and you see a big trend at this very moment for ranged DPS. Demonology Warlocks did make a comeback. To be honest, the demon armor changes, or at least the removal, didn't really affect Demonology since they didn't have the PvP talent. So they just gained a net bonus of 10% stamina buff, which is super good for them because their demonic tyrants scales with HP from you and your demons, so it's very good for them. Also, having a 25% extra MS, not extra, but you have a 25% MS effect on your pet is a big plus because now you can really kill people with dampening, or even in early and mid game of the arena, you can really kill some people with a second tyrant coming on their way. So often than not, you will see Demonology more often in twos. It is a good spec. It's probably the best spec for Warlocks at this very moment, which is kind of sad because in threes you just need to kill the pet. It's not that easy, but if you kill the pet and you re-kill the summon from the second summon from Demonology, they are straight paper because Soul Link will transfer 20% of the damage that you do to the Warlock to the pet. So if they have no pet, they will just take 20% more damage. And that is pretty lethal for a Demonology Warlock. Fire Mage is still on top. It will never change, I think, until it gets nerfed pretty heavily, maybe with DB Sheep, something like that. Or removal from Ring of Frost, for example. Like something that makes them a bit more kickable, a bit more counterable. Now they're feeling like tanks and they have a combust rate, I would say burst window, which makes it very hard to deal with. Beast Mastery is still very popular. Beast Mastery with Survival is really one of the most played spec at this very moment. But for ranged DPS, you will see a bit more BM hunters than any other class, really. Like you will see Elemental Shamans now have a big resurgence because of uh, the specific build with Mastery, so you can actually throw meatballs all the time and you are very mobile, especially with the 4 set. You get a lot of procs and it just makes it a bit more easy to play. It is a bit less dampening at the moment, but Elemental Shaman is a dampening spec in twos, so you should be prepared to have long matches versus them. Marksmanship hunters still a bit popular, a bit more popular than the other classes or other specs, but it is for the reason because marksmanship hunters are actually fun to play. Are they OP? I don't know. I feel like it's counterable to a certain extent. Of course, sometimes you will just die randomly because of a kill shot from 20k, or they are doing their Kirin ability and they are shooting through walls and you're dying through a rapid fire, or they are playing Necrolord and you're imploding. I mean, they have a lot of good covenants and good synergies with classes, which makes them actually lethal in twos. But are they OP? We will see that in the tier list, of course. Shadow Priest, they are actually a bit more popular these days, just because you can really be annoying, and you can also play double DPS with a hybrid or with a lock or a mage, and you can actually have huge success with. But it is of course harder to play a Shadow Priest than, let's say, a Fury Warrior. So keep a look for Shadow. Shadow, I think, if they have a good change, like a good balancing change, a buff, that would be really, really meta changing, I would say, because at the moment it is not that bad. It is still underperforming, but with a buff or two, they could go on top. Like Night Fae, Venthe, and Necrolords are all three good Covenant specs for your Shadow Priests. Destruction Warlocks, of course, the trinket's gone, demon armor is gone, the forset not stunning anymore. Destruction wasn't really popular in twos anyways, and now it is like underplayed before. Like 543 games in EU, it is even lower than Retribution. It is on par with only Unholy Decays, which Unholy Decays is 1% of all the melees. So just keep in mind that ranged DPS are always underplayed in twos, and they are not that good. They are harder to play, they are a bit more dampening because people will just run around circles to try to not let you free cast. It is a bit harder to make it work, but you can still make it work with a Frost Mage or with a Holy Priest. Frost Mage for the obvious reason that you have a second threat in your team, and Holy Priest because of their instant CC that can help you actually land Chaos Bolts. Frost mages, they were not never actually very good in twos. It is a very dampening spec, and if they let you cast, of course they are going to die. But if they have any sense on what is going to happen, they are just not going to let you cast. Balanced Druids, they are not that popular because again they are a dampening spec. They can of course convoke one-shot people, they can play with Subtlety Rogue, but you will see on the tier list I rate them not as high as another class could be. For example, Affliction Warlocks I'm playing a specific build with Shadow Bolts. Of course, I've made a video about it. You can check it out on my channel. But the demon armor removal really hurt them the most, even more than destruction. Destruction has a innate damage reduction passive, which is mastery. But Affliction Warlocks, they are naked versus Fury Warriors. They are the easiest spec to actually kill in arenas because they don't have defenses. Like Dark Pact is also subject to dampening. It is also subject to a lot of abilities that can actually destroy Dark Pact. I'm thinking about a warrior that is just shattering throwing you, for example. They have huge damage versus you, and yeah, the Dark Pact doesn't really mean anything for them. But actually, you have an option to play with Shadow Bolts. Again, with my guide, you can find it out how to do, and you can just land 32Ks like casually times 3 and can actually kill someone like by surprise. But it is still one of the most underperforming specs at this very moment for twos. In threes it's a bit better, but we will discuss it about it in a further video, I would say, in the next video. Arcane, underperforming. You have cheese builds, but really, what can you do? It is still underplayed for a good reason. Fire is just better. Frost is a bit more fun, I would say. And Arcane, yes, you can have fun with it, but really, you are tank spec. You're just soaking damage and hoping that you are going to blow up someone whenever they have no CDs. But it's a bit more hoping and it's a bit more difficult to climb. Of course, you can still climb with all these specs, but that doesn't mean that they are actually meta. So I'm going to discuss right away on the tier list. I'm going to explain the tier list very quickly. So we have S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier. S tier is God tier, which means that it is above the meta. So you have the meta and it is just above. So pretty much you're picking this, you have a great chance to actually climb easily with it. I would say easily, easier than the other classes. A tier is meta, so it means that it is actually meta to play it in 2v2. But it doesn't mean that they are OP, it just means that they are meta. B tier is average, means that you can still climb with it. It is just average. other classes have better opportunities to kill people or better opportunities to survive things. You can still make it work, but I would not recommend to pick a class from B tier or lower to grind CR. If you like that class, of course, play that class, but you are not going to grind CR if you don't like the class and you think it's easy win. It is not with those classes. C tier means underpowered. It is just underpowered, and D tier means it is garbage. So please don't play that. I feel like it's a bit harsh as a rating because what is really garbage in the game? But I guess you can have a good list of classes and specs where you can put everything in one place, for example. Well, Affliction Warlock, it is my main class at the moment. I'm playing a lot of games in threes. I cannot play in twos because I feel like it is really underpowered, and that's why I'm putting it in C tier. Excuse me. So I feel like Affliction is a underpowered spec. It is actually strong versus specific classes and spec combinations, but you are not going to climb very easily with it. You can say anything about Affliction. Affliction is really the most fragile spec in the game at this very moment. Like, the removal of demon armor just made them take at least 15% more damage versus physical damage. Like, for example, a warrior. For example, sometimes a havoc does also physical damage, but also chaos damage. But still, you're taking 17% extra damage. You're taking more damage versus BM hunters, versus survival hunters. You're taking damage versus marksmanship hunters. You are taking more damage versus any class, really. It becomes infinitely harder. Also, you have classes that are just there as a counter for you. So I'm talking about hunters, I'm talking about like rogues, I'm talking about, for example, a windwalker that just can diffuse magic themselves. They can also play versus a demon hunter, and the demon hunter will just reverse magic everything, which makes you an easier target to kill anyways because they cannot dispel you. So Affliction Warlocks deserve the C tier, although I love my class, I love my spec, but it is not deserving more than that. Arcane Mages, I would say, are they on par with Affliction or even worse? I don't know. Is it justified to put it in garbage tier? I feel like in twos you're just playing as a tank, and yes, you can play the Arcanosphere build, but that's cheesy. Like, if people are saying that my Affliction Warlock guide and build is cheesy because you can catch Shadow Bolt 3 times for 30k or more, then what is Arcanosphere? I mean, that's really cheesy. I mean, you really need to evocate, and then you have a CD on evocation. It doesn't work all the time because people just know how to deal with it now. So I would say Arcane Mages are like on the garbage tier, but you can still make it work, I guess, if you're a Mage Pro or whatever. I mean, if Venruki can play it in twos and can play it in threes, just means that it is playable. But frankly, for everyone that just doesn't know how to play Arcane or doesn't want to learn Arcane, I would say it is easily the most garbage spec in the game. I would say Affliction is also a bit of garbage, although I play it myself. But I feel like you have still more win conditions than an Arcane Mage, for example. BM Hunters, S tier, they have too much control on the game. They just need to play with a Holy Priest or with a resto Druid, and you have like infinite CC. They really are versatile, and they will just kill you over time or directly when they are bursting. If you're not paying attention, they can just kill you through their burst, or they will kill you with a random kill shot that does 20k damage whenever you are 50% HP. It is actually insane. But yeah, hunters are running the show in twos, and it is just how it is. And if you want something more balanced, I guess threes is a bit more balanced than twos at the moment. It's really hard to make some things work versus them. Like, for example, Affliction Warlocks have a big bad time versus them. Although with my build you don't really have a super bad time because you're not dot reliant. It is just a improvement for your Shadow Bolt. But BM hunters have like no resources. They can just spam a few buttons and they will kill you over time. So Demonology Warlocks, I would say it is the best Warlock spec, and it is meta at the moment for me in twos, out of all range specs. Of course, if you're putting melee and range together, I don't think that any range class deserves, except BM Enter, I would say, deserve to be meta. But since it's a ranged tier list, I would say that it is a meta spec. If you want to play ranged in twos, in threes we can discuss about it, but in twos at least it has a fighting chance, and it is actually meta for all those specs related. So Destruction Warlock is a bit better than Affliction, but it is not meta, it is average. It still gets killed by melee because demon armor removal. The stun removal is quite big actually, because you had the easier time to land a fourth chaos bolt or a third chaos bolt after the stun. So at the moment, I feel like Destruction Warlocks got nerfed deserved. It was deserved. The Trinket nerf was deserved because it was like a skill cap removal. You didn't really have to fake cast anymore. But in this game, in the state of the game, really fake casting makes you just an easier target to kill, because if you're fake casting 3 times, then the fourth time you're casting, if they kick or not, it just makes it not worth it to do. So sometimes you just eat a silence and then you can go on with your burst. But I guess it's also a difficult spec to play, that's why it's average. And Demonology is quite more tanky than Destruction Warlock, and they have more possibilities to kill people. Elemental Shaman is meta. It is actually very strong. I would say better than Demonology, although it's less played. But I feel like a lot of Warlock mains that mains Season 2 Warlocks because of obvious reasons, or Season 3 Warlocks because of tier sets, they just turn to Demonology because that's the best next thing in twos. But one time they will just decide to re-roll or go melee, and often than not, if they re-roll, they would go for elemental, because at the moment it is the flavor of the month. Everyone wants to play elemental, everyone wants to have meatballs hit for 10k times 5 times 6 in one time. It does a lot of damage, but you need to understand that there is a lot of classes that can counter you. There's a lot of classes that can be very annoying for you, and sometimes you just need to kite and try to pray for a good proc to have 6 meatballs going for the melee and maybe kill him with an earth shock at the end. Fire mages, they are S tier. I don't know if I'm putting them ahead or behind BM. I would say fire mage with rogue mage, of course. They are playing rogue mage pretty much all the time. They are really a menace because they are tanky. They have the combust goes, they have polymorph, they have ring of frost, they have the kiting possibility. They are very, very durable. And that makes also a very good class for 2v2. And a good fire mage will just make up for every mistake from your rogue. So it depends always how the comp is working. Is the rogue stronger than the mage, or is the mage stronger than the rogue? For me, a good fire mage can just be a nuisance to everyone, while a rogue that is a bit worse than the mage can still stun lock a target whenever you are going for a combust goal. So fire mages are god tier. I don't know if they are god tier in the overall 2v2 meta, but it is definitely meta in the overall state, and god tier if you're talking about ranged. Fire, like frost mages are underpowered in twos. Let me tell you why. It is actually hard to free cast frostbolts. You are easy targets to just interrupt. Your polymorph, is it worth it to interrupt? Yes, but if you're playing versus the wrong classes, like for example a resto shaman with, let's say, a outlaw rogue, let's say a fury warrior, you will not cast a single frostbolt in the game. They will either silence you or interrupt you or grounding totem you, or they will just pillar hump until they have their interrupt ready to go. It's very hard to make it work. You can still climb, I would say, as a frost mage, because you still have the elements of surprise with the damage that you can provide, but it is not a meta class, and it is, in my opinion, worse than a Destruction Warlock, but a bit better than an Affliction Warlock, so that's why it is high C tier. Do you want to buff them for twos? Not really, because in threes it still works, but it is definitely not as good as previous patch because the trinket removal just made them very, very susceptible for interrupts. Marksmanship hunters, they are B tier. I still feel like they are a menace at all game long, but they are really hard countered by disarms. If they get disarms while they are going, they pretty much need a bop or a trinket to actually do their go. And whenever they are trinketing the disarm, you are an easy target to just stun lock and kill you while you're stunned. So it is not the easiest spec to play. You have to have knowledge for matchups that you're going for. Of course, you are better versus classes because you can rapid fire and then go around the pillar and they cannot do anything about it. But yeah, you cannot really CC as much as a BM hunter or a survival hunter. They are the worst hunter spec. I would say the worst. Yeah, they are not really bad, but they are worse than BM and survival, so they are deserving the B tier. I don't even know if there is an overall 2v2 tier list. If they make the cuts to B tier, it might be C tier in 2v2 in general. But out of all the ranged specs, for me, it is a B tier spec. Balanced druids, they are underpowered, but behind Affliction Warlocks. I feel like you have a cheese, it is Convoke, but outside of Convoke, you are really, really, really searching for your burst. It is a dampening spec. If you're playing with a Holy Paladin, you are going to dampen everyone. You are trying to one-shot people with your Star Surge goes, with your Incarnation, if you're playing Incarnation, or Convoke, or whatever Covenant you're playing. You're trying to dampen them so you can actually cyclone the healer at one point and then go on the DPS and then root beam the healer again and then you can kill the DPS. But it is quite hard to make it work. I guess you can make it work with a subtlety rogue, but subtlety rogue is so good in shadowy duel, someone that has no trinkets, and kill them in 100 and 0 into one duel. That really, is it because of the boomkin or is it because of the subtlety rogue that you are actually performing? So for me it is C tier just because of the fact that they are not performing by itself, but they are performing because of the comp or because of the dampening meta in twos. Shadow Priests, I would say they are better and better at the moment. They are for sure not as bad as previous patch, just because they are actually buffed because of the nerfs from other classes. So for me it's a B tier, I would say behind MM. But the reason is a double DPS, your Shadow Priest can do some serious damage. They can also off heal very well. You can play with the legendary that gives you a good heal every X seconds. You can play a lot of PvP talents that can either save you or your teammates, and you have a lot of comps that you can make work. You can play with a healer, but that would be a very, very dampening meta or dampening comp. But you can also play with a Frost Mage, you can play with a Destruction Warlock, you can play with a Fire Mage, you can play with an Elemental Shaman, you can play with a Demonology Warlock, you can even play with a Hunter or a Paladin, and you can make it work. But I would recommend to play with a double DPS caster, so you can actually cast spells and actually be a menace however you want. Also, Psyfiend is one of the best mortal strike effects that you can apply into for anyone because they need to kill it first and foremost, and sometimes they just forget about it and then you can just wreck someone into a Psyfiend go. So Shadow Priest B tier, definitely better than previous season because of the nerfs, but you still need to understand that Shadow Priest isn't as OP or as good as season 1 Shadow Priest. So this is my tier list. You can take a look. To be honest, I think that I've put every class at the correct place. Frankly enough, I like to make tier lists. I feel like the experience I have with lots of characters, because I'm playing a lot of characters, does help me to make tier lists. Although, yeah, sometimes I could be a miss on a specific spec, but let me know in the comments below what you think about this tier list. And of course, we will see each other very soon. Thank you for subscribing to the channel whenever you're subscribing. Thank you for liking the video whenever you like the video. And thank you for commenting below all those nice things that you're saying about my channel, about me, about my gameplay, about my builds and guides. I really appreciate you guys. And we will see each other very soon. Bye.